They thought she was just another black girl they could break, a teenager who'd step back into line after a little lesson. They were wrong. When Officer Todd Wallace poured water over Maya Carter's head in front of her classmates, he wasn't just humiliating a student who'd embarrassed his nephew. He was awakening a war, because Maya's father, Colonel Daniel Carter, hadn't spent 2 decades in Delta Force to watch his daughter terrorized in her own hometown. What follows isn't just justice. It's a surgical dismantling of corruption by a man who specializes in making enemies disappear. They came for the wrong black girl, and they never saw the shadow behind her. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. The morning sun filtered through Maya Carter's bedroom, curtains as her alarm blared. She reached over, silencing it with a practiced tap before sitting up. Her room was neat but lived in, walls adorned with photos of family, academic awards, and a few military mementos from her father's career. Maya stretched and grabbed her phone, seeing a notification that made her smile. A voice message from her dad. She pressed play and Colonel Daniel Carter's deep, reassuring voice filled the room. "Morning, sunshine. Different time zone, can't sleep, so I thought I'd check in. Your debate's today, right? Remember what I taught you. Stay calm, speak clearly, and never let them see you sweat. I'm sorry I can't be there, but this mission, well, you know how it goes. Make me proud, kiddo. I love you." Maya smiled, a touch of sadness in her eyes. Her father's deployments were nothing new, but this one was different. No location shared, no timeline given, just the words, classified and important. She'd learned long ago not to ask questions. "Love you too, Dad," she whispered to the empty room before getting ready for school. Maya moved through her morning routine with military precision, a trait unknowingly inherited from her father. Shower, dress, breakfast. She chose her outfit carefully, a simple blue blouse and jeans, professional enough for the debate but not trying too hard. In the kitchen, her mother Lisa was already up, coffee in hand, reviewing patient files. As a nurse at the local hospital, Lisa's schedule was almost as demanding as her husband's. "Big day?" Lisa asked, looking up. Maya nodded, pouring herself a glass of orange juice. "Dad sent a message. He's okay." Lisa's expression softened. "That's good. He'll be home before you know it." She checked her watch. "I've got an early shift. Need a ride to school?" "No thanks. I could use the walk to clear my head before the debate." The walk to Jefferson High was peaceful, the late September air crisp but not cold. Maya used the time to mentally review her arguments. The topic was modern civil rights, something she was passionate about, having experienced her fair share of prejudice in their predominantly white suburban town. As she approached the school building, the peaceful morning atmosphere evaporated. Standing near the entrance was Ethan Wallace, tall, blonde, and perpetually smirking. He was surrounded by his usual entourage, all laughing too loudly at something he'd said. Maya tried to walk past unnoticed, but Ethan's voice carried. "I'm telling you, my uncle basically runs this town. Dad says he's got more pull than the mayor." He laughed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Last week he pulled over some guy from the east side, and when the dude tried to complain, Uncle Todd just laughed and wrote him another ticket." His friends chuckled appreciatively, and Maya felt her jaw tighten. Todd Wallace's reputation was well known, a cop who played by his own rules and seemed untouchable because of it. Maya slipped past the group without comment. She had better things to focus on than Ethan's boasting. The morning passed quickly, and by afternoon, Maya found herself in the debate classroom. Mrs. Peterson, their teacher, was setting up while students filtered in. Maya took her assigned position, laying out her notes methodically. Across from her, Ethan sauntered in, flashing a confident smile at his supporters. "Today's debate topic is the current state of police reform in America," Mrs. Peterson announced. "Team 1 will argue for increased oversight, Team 2 against. Maya's team will begin." Maya stood, her nervousness disappearing as she began her opening statement. She cited statistics, referenced recent cases, and made a compelling argument for accountability. When she finished, there was a moment of impressed silence before polite applause. Ethan's rebuttal started strong but quickly veered off topic. "The police are the thin blue line protecting us from chaos," he said, his voice rising. "Maybe if certain communities showed more respect for authority, there wouldn't be problems in the first place." A murmur rippled through the classroom. Mrs. Peterson frowned but allowed him to continue. When Maya's turn came again, she spoke calmly. "The issue isn't about respect, it's about systems of power and who they protect. When your uncle brags about writing extra tickets for East Side residents, that's not law enforcement, that's harassment." The room went silent. Ethan's face flushed deep red. "My team has shown that reform benefits everyone, including good police officers who want to serve with honor," Maya continued, refusing to back down. "Your argument isn't just flawed, Ethan, it's dangerous." By the time the debate ended, the winner was clear. Mrs. Peterson awarded Maya's team the victory, praising their research and composure. As students filed out, Maya could feel Ethan's glare burning into her back. She was at her locker when he approached, his friends conspicuously absent. "You had no right bringing my uncle into this," he hissed, leaning close enough that only she could hear. "You made me look like an idiot." Maya closed her locker calmly. "You did that yourself." As she turned to leave, Ethan grabbed her wrist. "Don't walk away from me, you." Pure instinct took over. In one fluid motion, a self-defense move her father had drilled into her since childhood, Maya twisted, using Ethan's momentum against him. Before either of them fully realized what was happening, Ethan was on his back, staring up at the hallway ceiling. The wind knocked out of him. A small crowd had gathered, wide-eyed and whispering. Maya stood frozen, suddenly aware of what she'd done. "You're crazy!" Ethan sputtered, scrambling to his feet as a teacher approached to investigate the commotion. Before anyone could question her, Maya walked quickly away, heart pounding. She'd never used those moves on anyone before. Her father had been clear, self-defense only, never aggression. But Ethan's grip, his anger, something had triggered her training. Ethan watched her go, humiliation turning to cold hatred in his eyes. That afternoon, Ethan stormed into his house, slamming the door behind him. His Uncle Todd was in the living room, still in his police uniform, boots up on the coffee table as he watched TV. "What's got you all worked up?" Todd asked, barely glancing away from the screen. "That Carter girl," Ethan spat. "She embarrassed me in debate, then attacked me in the hallway, flipped me onto the ground in front of everyone." This caught Todd's attention. He sat up, his expression darkening. "Carter? Daniel Carter's kid?" "Yeah, that military guy. His daughter Maya thinks she knows everything about police work. Called you out by name." Todd set down his beer, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. "Did she now?" He pulled out his phone, sending a quick text. "Jake, get over here. Got a little situation that needs handling." Within 20 minutes, Officer Jake Miller was there, lounging on the couch beside Todd as Ethan recounted his version of events, now featuring a much more aggressive Maya and an entirely unprovoked attack. "Girl needs to learn some respect," Jake said, nodding. Todd's eyes narrowed. "Daniel Carter's deployed again. Heard it at the station. Wife works long shifts at the hospital." He turned to Ethan. "Which way does she walk home?" "Down Oakwood, usually." Todd and Jake exchanged looks, a silent understanding passing between them. "Time to put some fear into this one," Todd said, standing up and adjusting his belt. "Show her how things work in our town." Maya walked home alone that afternoon, unaware of the conversation that had taken place. The fall leaves crunched beneath her feet as she replayed the day's events. The debate had gone well, but the incident with Ethan troubled her. Would there be consequences? Should she tell her mom? Lost in thought, she barely registered the police cruiser slowing beside her until a voice called out, "Maya Carter?" She stopped, turning to see two officers watching her from their vehicle. The driver, older, with cold eyes and a thin smile. She recognized as Todd Wallace. The younger one must be his partner. "Yes?" she responded cautiously. "We need to have a chat about what happened at school today," Todd said. his tone falsely pleasant as both officers stepped out of the car. "I was defending myself," Maya said firmly, though her heart raced. "Ethan grabbed me first," Jake snorted. "That's not what we heard. Sounds like you assaulted the kid for no reason." "That's not true," Maya protested. "There were witnesses." "Witnesses can be confused," Todd said, stepping closer. "What we have here is a case of a student with a violent outburst. Ethan's my nephew, sure, but I'm a professional. I just want to make sure everyone gets treated fairly." The way he emphasized fairly made Maya's skin crawl. "I think you should apologize to Ethan," Todd continued. "Keep this from becoming a bigger issue." Maya straightened her shoulders. "I won't apologize for defending myself." Something cold flashed in Todd's eyes. In one quick movement, he grabbed Maya's arm and pushed her against the police car, her cheek pressed to the cool metal. "Listen carefully," he whispered, his mouth close to her ear. "This town has rules. My rules. Your daddy isn't here to protect you." Maya remained silent, heart hammering as Jake laughed softly. "We'll be keeping an eye on you," Todd continued, releasing her with a small shove. "For your own safety, of course." As they drove away, Maya stood shaking, anger and fear coursing through her. From a nearby house, an elderly man watched through. His window, his phone recording the entire encounter. Mr. Wilson had seen Todd's behavior before. This time, he had evidence. The next day dawned with a sense of dread hanging over Maya. She'd told her mother nothing about the encounter with Todd and Jake, not wanting to worry her while her father was away. But as she approached Jefferson, that decision felt increasingly wrong. She spotted the police cruiser immediately, parked just across from the school entrance, Todd leaning against it with arms crossed. His eyes locked on her the moment she came into view. Maya kept walking, determined to show no fear, though her heart pounded against her ribs. She'd almost reached the school steps when Todd pushed off from his car and intercepted her path, a water bottle in his hand. "Morning, Maya," he said, loud enough for nearby students to hear. His voice was friendly, but his eyes were cold as stone. "Thought you might be thirsty after your walk." Before she could respond, he unscrewed the cap and slowly, deliberately poured water over her face and down the front of her shirt. The cold liquid shocked her system, running down her neck and soaking her clothes as nearby students gasped. "Oops," Todd said flatly. "Clumsy me." Maya stood frozen, water dripping from her chin, her clothes clinging to her skin. She could feel, her hands curling into fists at her sides, but kept them there, knowing any reaction was exactly what he wanted. "What's wrong?" Todd taunted, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "Crying already? Haven't even started yet." From the corner of her eye, Maya could see Jake laughing from inside the cruiser. Further back, partially hidden by a tree, stood Ethan, watching with a smug smile. "You're a disgrace to your uniform," Maya said quietly, meeting his gaze without flinching. Todd's smile vanished. He leaned in close, his breath hot against her wet face. "This is just the beginning. Your kind needs to learn respect." He turned and walked back to his car, leaving Maya standing there, soaked and humiliated as the morning bell rang. In the bathroom, Maya's best friend Zoe helped her dry off with paper towels. "You need to report him," Zoe urged, her voice trembling. "What he did was assault." "Report him to who? He's the police," Maya replied, wringing water from her shirt. "Besides, it would just make things worse." Zoe grabbed Maya's arm. "My cousin in Baltimore stood up to a cop once, ended up with broken ribs and charges that took years to fight." Her eyes were wide with fear. "These guys can destroy your life, Maya. Please just stay quiet until your dad gets back." Maya said nothing, but her silence wasn't agreement. The Carter family didn't bow to bullies. That was one of her father's firmest beliefs. That evening, Maya finally told her mother what had happened. Lisa Carter's face darkened with each detail, from the hallway incident with Ethan to Todd's water bottle accident. "We're going to the station right now," Lisa said, grabbing her keys. "Mom, no," Maya pleaded. "Todd's got friends there. It won't help. Let's wait for Dad." Lisa hesitated, torn between maternal fury and practicality. 3 more weeks, she finally said. Your father's back in 3 weeks. If anything else happens, anything, we go straight to the state police, promise me. Maya nodded, relieved but uneasy. 3 weeks felt like an eternity. That night she noticed the police cruiser driving slowly past their house, headlights off, just a dark shape in the night. Once, twice, 3 times. A message, clear as day, you're being watched. The next morning, Maya went straight to Principal Winter's office before classes began. Officer Wallace dumped water on me in front of the school, she stated flatly. I want to file a formal complaint. Principal Winters, a thin man with perpetually worried eyes, glanced out his window as if expecting to see Todd standing there. That's a very serious accusation, Maya, he said, shuffling papers on his desk. Officer Wallace has been our school resource officer for years. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding? It wasn't a misunderstanding, Maya insisted. He did it to intimidate me because I stood up to his nephew. Winters sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. Look, Maya, you're one of our best students. I don't want to see you get caught up in something complicated. The police department and this school have a very important relationship. So you're not going to do anything, Maya said flatly. I'll speak to Officer Wallace about appropriate behavior on school grounds, Winters replied weakly. But these things are best handled delicately. Maya left his office knowing exactly what delicately meant. Not at all. The halls were nearly empty. As she made her way to her locker, most students already in their first period classes. The metallic scent hit her before she even turned the dial. Spray paint, fresh and sharp in the air. She opened the locker to find her books dripping with black paint, the interior walls covered with ugly slurs. Someone had taken their time, making sure the damage was thorough. Impressive, isn't it? Maya turned to find Ethan leaning against the lockers, arms crossed, a satisfied smile on his face. Did you do this? She demanded. Me? I've been in the library all morning. Ask anyone. His smile widened. Though I did hear someone might have left their locker unlocked. Careless. Maya slammed the defaced locker shut. You won't break me, Ethan. Maybe not, he conceded with a shrug. But Uncle Todd isn't worried about breaking you. He's just getting started. Throughout the day, Maya noticed the whispers, the sideways glances from students and even teachers. By lunchtime, she realized why. Rumors were circulating that she had a violent record, that she'd been kicked out of her previous school, that her father's military career was in jeopardy because of her behavior. Zoe confirmed it during lunch, her voice low. They're saying Officer Wallace has your juvenile record, that you beat up some girl at your old school. I've never had a record, Maya said incredulously. We've lived here my entire life. You've known me since kindergarten. I know that, Zoe said helplessly. But people are believing it. Officer Wallace is respected, feared, anyway. After school, Maya avoided her usual route home, cutting through the park instead. She was nearly to the other side when a police cruiser pulled up on the parallel street, blocking her path at the park exit. Todd and Jake stepped out, Todd tossing a small object between his hands. Going home the long way? Todd called out. Smart. I'd be avoiding me too. Maya stopped, maintaining distance. What do you want? Just checking on a troubled teen, Todd replied, his voice carrying across the empty park. Got a report about a girl matching your description causing trouble. Have to follow up on all leads. There was no report, Maya said firmly. Todd shrugged. Record shows there was. My record, he added pointedly. He tossed the object he'd been holding and it landed at Maya's feet, her school ID card. She stared at it in shock. Found that in evidence lockup, Todd said casually, along with a bag of something that would get you expelled. Strange how these things turn up. You're planting evidence, Maya said, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. That's a crime, Jake laughed. Who's going to stop us? Your dad? He's halfway around the world. By the time he gets back, you could be facing charges, expelled. Reputation ruined. Todd gestured for Maya to pick up her ID. When she bent to retrieve it, he continued in a lower voice. Ethan wants to see you broken. Me? I just enjoy the game. His smile turned vicious. We're planning something special, something that will leave you and your family begging for mercy. After they drove away, Maya stood rooted to the spot, their words echoing in her mind. This wasn't just harassment anymore. It was a threat against her entire family. That night, Maya sat on her bed staring at her phone. The temptation to call her father was overwhelming, but military protocol was clear. Emergency calls only during classified missions, and even then, they might not reach him immediately. A text from Zoe lit up her screen. Are you okay? Heard they cornered you in the park. News traveled fast in Jefferson. Maya typed back a quick, I'm fine, before setting her phone aside. She wasn't fine, but admitting it wouldn't help. Outside, the same police cruiser rolled past the house again, a silent reminder that Todd Wallace was watching, waiting, planning his next move. Maya closed her curtains, but the feeling of being hunted remained. In the darkness of her room, she made a decision. She wouldn't wait for her father's return to fight back. She'd start now, documenting everything, gathering evidence. If Todd Wallace wanted a war, he'd find the Carter family was more than prepared to give him one. What he didn't know, what would soon become terrifyingly clear, was that he hadn't just targeted any military man's daughter. Colonel Daniel Carter was one of the most feared Delta Force commanders in modern warfare, a man who specialized in making enemies disappear without a trace. And he was coming home. Maya sat at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly pushing scrambled eggs around her plate. The past 3 weeks had been a relentless nightmare. The rumors at school had intensified, her locker had been vandalized twice more, and Todd's cruiser had become a fixture outside their house at night. She'd taken to documenting everything in a journal, collecting what evidence she could, but the constant pressure was wearing her down. Her mother entered the kitchen, already dressed in her scrubs for the morning shift. You're up early, Lisa remarked, pouring herself coffee. Her eyes lingered on Maya, noting the dark circles that had become permanent fixtures under her daughter's eyes. Couldn't sleep, Maya replied simply. Lisa sighed, setting her mug down. I've been thinking, maybe we shouldn't wait for your father. I could take the day off and we could drive to the state police headquarters. Before Maya could respond, the front door opened. Both women froze, then relaxed at the familiar sound of heavy boots in the hallway. Colonel Daniel Carter stood in the kitchen doorway, his tall frame filling the space. His military haircut was slightly grown out, and stubble shadowed his jaw. Though he smiled at the sight of his family, his eyes, sharp and observant, immediately picked up on the tension in the room. Surprise, he said, dropping his duffel bag. Lisa was across the room in seconds, wrapping her arms around him. Maya followed, burying her face in her father's chest, inhaling the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with the sterile airport smell. You're early, Lisa said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. Mission wrapped up ahead of schedule, Daniel replied, keeping one arm around each of them. Thought I'd surprise you. He pulled back slightly, looking down at Maya. His expression shifted as he noticed something. The faded bruise on her wrist, mostly healed but still visible. His smile faded. What happened? He asked, his voice dropping to that quiet register that Maya recognized as far more dangerous than any shouting. Maya glanced at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. Let's sit down, Dad, Maya said. There's a lot to tell you. For 20 minutes, Daniel Carter listened without interruption as Maya recounted everything: the debate with Ethan, the confrontation in the hallway, Todd's escalating harassment, the vandalism, the threats. His face remained impassive, but his eyes grew colder with each detail. When she finished, he asked only one question. Who did this? Officer Todd Wallace, Maya answered, and his partner, Jake Miller. Daniel nodded, once, processing the information with military precision. Lisa, you should get to work. Don't want you to be late. His tone was gentle but firm. "Maya, you're staying home from school today." "But I have a test in—" "You're staying home," he repeated, his voice leaving no room for argument. After Lisa left for her shift, Daniel spent the morning making calls from his home office, the door closed. Maya caught fragments, names, dates, references to records that shouldn't exist. By noon he emerged, dressed in civilian clothes but carrying himself with military bearing. "I'm going out for a while," he told Maya. "Lock the doors. Don't answer. For anyone." "Where are you going?" she asked. "To have a conversation," he replied simply. The Jefferson Police Department was housed in a low brick building at the center of town. Daniel parked his truck in the visitor's lot and walked in with measured steps, noting the layout, the exits, the security cameras. Old habits. At the front desk, a young officer looked up. "Can I help you, sir?" "I'm here to see Officer Todd Wallace." "Your name?" "Colonel Daniel Carter." The officer's eyebrows rose slightly in recognition, either of the name or the rank. "Let me see if he's available." 5 minutes later, Todd Wallace emerged from a back hallway, his uniform crisp, his expression neutral. He was shorter than Daniel had expected, stockier, with small eyes set in a face that seemed permanently arranged in a smirk. "Colonel Carter," Todd said, extending a hand that Daniel pointedly did not shake. "What brings you to our department today?" "I think you know," Daniel replied evenly. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" Todd led him to a small interview room, gesturing for Daniel to take a seat. Instead, Daniel remained standing, watching as Todd closed the door. "My daughter tells me you've been harassing her," Daniel said without preamble. Todd's smirk widened. "Kids these days always exaggerating. We had a minor incident with your daughter displaying some aggressive behavior at school. I was just doing my job, keeping the peace." "By pouring water on a teenage girl? By stalking her home? By spreading lies about her record?" Daniel's voice remained calm, but his eyes had hardened to granite. "That's not peacekeeping, Wallace. That's abuse of power." Todd leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Look, Colonel, I appreciate your service and all, but you've been away. Maya's been disruptive, disrespectful to authority. The girl needs to learn her place." Daniel stepped closer, his movement so smooth and controlled that Todd didn't register the danger until Daniel was directly in front of him, close enough that Todd had to tilt his head up to maintain eye contact. "Listen carefully," Daniel said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You don't know what war looks like, Wallace. But you will." Todd swallowed, his swagger momentarily faltering before he recovered. "Is that a threat, Colonel?" "It's a promise," Daniel replied. "Stay away from my family." As Daniel turned to leave, Todd called after him. "What's your plan here exactly? We're the law in this town. You going to call the army? Your fancy Delta Force buddies?" Daniel didn't bother to turn around as he opened the door. "I don't need the army for this." Back at the station's break room, Todd recounted the encounter to Jake and 2 other officers, his voice loud enough to carry. "Military guy thinks he's tough shit," he laughed, cracking open a soda. "Like I'm going to be scared of some by-the-book soldier." Jake looked less certain. "Delta Force though, man. Those guys aren't regular army." "So what?" Todd scoffed. "What's he gonna do? Call the army? We've got badges, guns, and the whole system behind us. He's got nothing." He crushed the empty can in his fist. "In fact, I think it's time we stepped things up, show the Carters exactly who runs this town." That evening, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with Maya and Lisa, maps of the neighborhood spread out before them. He'd spent the afternoon making more calls, gathering information, and setting up surveillance cameras around their property. Small, military-grade devices that could capture clear images even in darkness. "The important thing is documentation," Daniel explained, showing them how to access the camera feeds on their phones. "Every interaction, every sighting, every threat, all of it gets recorded." "Do you think they'll back off now that you're home?" Lisa asked. Daniel shook his head. "Men like Wallace don't back down when challenged. They escalate, which is exactly what I'm counting on." Just before midnight, Maya was awakened by the sound of car engines outside. She peered through her bedroom curtains to see 3 police cruisers parked across the street, headlights off. Through the security app her father had installed, she watched as 6 officers, led by Todd and Jake, approached their front door. She rushed to her parents' bedroom, but her father was already up, calmly putting on a jacket. "Get your mother, and go to the basement," he instructed. "Use the panic room if necessary." "Dad." "Now, Maya," he said firmly. Before she could argue further, the sound of heavy pounding on the front door echoed through the house, followed by Todd's voice. "Police, open up! We have a warrant!" Daniel checked his phone, viewing the camera feed that showed Todd waving a paper, the supposed warrant. He texted someone quickly, then put his phone away. "They're lying about the warrant, aren't they?" Maya asked. Daniel nodded grimly. "Go downstairs with your mother. This will be over soon." As Maya and Lisa descended to the basement, Daniel walked calmly to the front door and opened it. Todd stood on the porch, flanked by Jake and 4 other officers. He thrust the paper forward. "Search warrant. Step aside." Daniel took the paper, scanning it with practiced eyes. "This isn't valid," he said calmly. "It's not signed by a judge." "Looks signed to me," Todd smirked, pushing past Daniel into the house. The other officers followed, spreading out through the living room. "We've had reports of illegal weapons in the home of a potentially unstable veteran. Very concerning." Daniel remained by the door, watching as the officers began opening drawers and overturning furniture. Their actions were deliberate, destructive. This wasn't a legitimate search. It was vandalism with badges. "You know this is illegal," Daniel said quietly. Todd laughed. "Prove it. Your word against 6 officers of the law. Now where's that daughter of yours? We have some questions for her too." From the kitchen came the sound of breaking glass as Jake deliberately swept a framed family photo onto the floor. "Oops," Jake called out. "Place is a mess, Colonel." Daniel remained unnervingly still, his eyes following Todd as the officer made his way toward the basement door. "What's down there?" Todd asked. "The girl hiding?" "I wouldn't go down there if I were you," Daniel warned. Todd's hand moved to his gun. "Is that a threat?" "Just advice," Daniel replied. Ignoring him, Todd opened the basement door and descended the stairs, calling out in a sing-song voice. "Maya, come out, wherever you are." In the basement, Maya and Lisa had locked themselves in the small reinforced room that Daniel had built years ago, ostensibly as a storm shelter, but designed with multiple safeguards. Through the security monitor, they watched as Todd reached the bottom of the stairs, shining his flashlight around the cluttered space. "I know you're down here," Todd called out, his voice echoing. "You scared yet?" Under the basement table, hidden by a toolbox, Maya's phone recorded everything. The illegal entry, the threatening language, the destruction upstairs. All of it streaming to a secure server that her father had set up that afternoon. The raid lasted 30 minutes. When the officers finally left, the house was in shambles. Furniture overturned, drawers emptied onto the floor, family photos smashed. Todd had left with a parting shot. "Tell your daughter this is just the beginning." Daniel waited until the cruisers had pulled away before texting Maya that it was safe to come upstairs. When they emerged from the basement, Lisa gasped at the destruction. "Oh my God," she whispered, taking in the chaos of their living room. Daniel was already checking his phone, reviewing the footage from Maya's hidden device. His expression remained neutral, but a muscle in his jaw twitched, the only outward sign of his fury. "Maya," he said quietly, "show me that recording you made." She pulled up the video on her phone, clear footage of Todd threatening her, admitting he had no real warrant, laughing about destroying their property. Daniel watched it in silence, then nodded once. Without a word, he walked to the basement door, descended the stairs, and disappeared into the small room at the back, a space that had always been off-limits to Maya. The door locked behind him with a heavy click. Lisa put her arm around Maya's shoulders. "Let's start cleaning up," she said softly. "What's Dad doing down there?" Maya asked. Lisa's expression was grim. "What he does best. Planning." In the small, soundproofed room, Daniel Carter opened a heavy footlocker that had been concealed beneath. Storage shelves. Inside lay the tools of his former trade, combat gear, tactical equipment, communications devices, items that no suburban home should contain, but that a Delta Force commander would never be without. He pulled out a secure phone and made a call to a number few people in the world possessed. "Wilson," said the voice that answered. "Been a while." "Carter." "I need the team," Daniel replied simply. "Unofficial operation. Domestic." There was a moment of silence. "All of us?" "All of you." Another pause. "Consider it done. What's the timeline?" Daniel's eyes hardened as he stared at the wall, where he'd pinned a photo of Officer Todd Wallace. 48 hours. This ends now. The next morning, Daniel sat at the kitchen table reviewing files on his laptop, while Maya and Lisa cleaned up the last of the mess from the raid. The doorbell rang, and Daniel checked the security camera before opening the door to an older man, Mr. Wilson, from across the street. "Colonel Carter," the man said, extending his hand. "Glad to see you're back. Been watching that officer harassing your daughter for weeks now." Daniel shook his hand. "You're the one who sent the first video." Mr. Wilson nodded. "Retired FBI. I know misconduct when I see it." He handed Daniel a flash drive. "Everything. I've recorded. That Wallace fellow's been busy, not just with Maya. Been watching him shake down businesses on the east side, too." "Thank you," Daniel said, pocketing the drive. "This helps." As Mr. Wilson turned to leave, he paused. "One more thing, Colonel. Whatever you're planning, and I know you're planning something, I want in." Daniel studied the man for a moment, then nodded. "I'll be in touch." Throughout the day, Daniel made more calls, reviewed more footage, and compiled more evidence. By evening, a comprehensive file had taken shape, not just documenting Todd's harassment of Maya, but revealing a pattern of corruption throughout Jefferson's police department. Maya watched as her father worked with military precision, his focus absolute. "You're building a case," she observed. "I'm building more than that," Daniel replied without looking up. "I'm building a trap." That night, 2 unmarked cars arrived at the Carter house. From them emerged 4 men, each moving with the same disciplined grace as Daniel. They carried duffel bags and equipment cases, which they brought directly to the Tao basement. Maya watched from the stairway as her father greeted each man with a quick embrace. Brothers in arms reunited for a mission. "Maya," Daniel called, noticing her. "Come meet the team." She descended the stairs nervously. These were her father's elite teammates, men he'd fought alongside in places he never discussed. "Gentlemen, my daughter Maya," Daniel said, pride evident in his voice. "Maya, this is Wilson Ramirez, Thomas and Lawson, the best soldiers I've ever known." Each man shook her hand respectfully. Wilson, a tall black man with keen eyes, spoke first. "Your father says you've been fighting your own battle. Impressive." "Not impressive enough," Maya replied. "They're still winning." "Not for long," Thomas assured her, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Your dad has a plan. Always does." For the next 2 days, the Carter house became an operations center. Maps were spread across tables, surveillance equipment was installed around town, and Maya found herself included in briefings that felt more like military planning sessions than family discussions. "Todd's gotten sloppy," Daniel explained, showing them footage of the officer accepting cash from a local business owner. "Thinks he's untouchable. That makes him vulnerable." "What's the end game here, Dad?" Maya asked during one such session. "Are you going to the FBI? The state police?" "Eventually," Daniel replied. "But first, we need Todd to incriminate himself completely, and for that, we need bait." Maya understood immediately. "Me?" Daniel nodded, his expression grim. "You'd be the most convincing, but it's your choice, Maya. Say no, and we find another way." Maya thought about the weeks of fear, of humiliation, of watching her mother worry and seeing their home violated. "I'm in," she said firmly. "What's the plan?" The plan was simple but elegant. Maya would appear to be meeting a witness at the abandoned gymnasium of the old middle school, someone claiming to have evidence against Todd. An anonymous tip would ensure Todd heard about it. "He'll come," Daniel predicted. "His ego won't. Let him ignore it. On a rainy Thursday evening, Maya sat alone on the bleachers of the dusty gymnasium, a single overhead light casting long shadows across the worn floor. She wore a concealed microphone, and in her pocket was a panic button that would bring immediate response if needed. Through her earpiece, she heard her father's voice. "Todd's on the move. 3 cruisers, headed your way. ETA 5 minutes." Maya took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. Around the gym, hidden in the shadows, Daniel's team was positioned, each man armed with non-lethal weapons and recording equipment. Nothing that would happen here tonight would go undocumented. The sound of car doors slamming outside echoed through the empty building. Maya remained seated, her posture relaxed despite her racing heart. The gymnasium doors banged open, and Todd strode in flanked by Jake and 4 other officers. Their flashlight beams cut through the dusty air, eventually finding Maya on the bleachers. "Well, well," Todd called out, his voice echoing. "Maya Carter, all alone. Officer Wallace," Maya replied calmly, standing up. "Didn't expect such a big reception committee." Todd laughed, walking closer, his confidence growing with each step. "Heard you were meeting someone with evidence against me. Where are they?" "They couldn't make it," Maya said with a slight shrug. "Just me." The officers spread out, forming a loose semicircle around her. Todd's hand rested casually on his gun. "You really thought you could win?" he asked, genuinely amused. "A teenage girl against the entire police department?" "I thought I could do what's right," Maya replied. Todd moved forward, his intent clear in his eyes. Time to finish this once and for all. Suddenly, the gymnasium lights cut out, plunging the space into total darkness. The officers' flashlights swept frantically, catching nothing but empty air. "What the hell?" Jake's voice echoed, panic evident. A deep, commanding voice resonated through the darkness. "Wrong move!" The emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie red glow throughout the gymnasium. Todd and his men found themselves surrounded by shadows that hadn't been there moments before. Daniel's team, positioned at every exit, silent and calculating. Daniel himself stepped forward into the light, his presence causing Todd to take an involuntary step back. "Colonel," Todd said, forcing a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "This is a police operation. You're interfering with what?" Daniel cut him off. "Your illegal harassment of my daughter, your corruption, your abuse of power." He gestured around the gym. "Did you notice we're in Jefferson County, not your jurisdiction? Did you bring a warrant this time, or are you just making it up as you go?" Todd's hand moved toward his weapon, but Wilson's voice came from behind him. "I wouldn't." Todd froze, suddenly aware of how completely outnumbered he was, not in bodies, but in skill and preparation. His officers looked to him for direction, their confidence evaporating. "You've got nothing," Todd bluffed. "It's your word against ours." Daniel smiled coldly. "Is it?" He nodded to Maya, who pulled out her phone and pressed play on a video, footage of Todd admitting to falsifying reports, to targeting Maya without cause, to abusing his position for personal vendetta. "That's just the beginning," Daniel continued, as Todd's face paled. "We have footage of your shakedowns on the east side, records of bribes, testimony from business owners. Mr. Wilson over there," he nodded to the elderly neighbor who had emerged from the shadows, "is retired FBI. He's been documenting your activities for months." Jake took a step back from Todd, distancing himself, physically and symbolically. "You came after my family," Daniel said, his voice dangerously quiet. "That was your first mistake. Your second was thinking your badge made you untouchable." "What do you want?" Todd asked, his bravado crumbling. "Justice," Daniel replied simply. "Start by turning in your badge, tonight. Then a full confession of every illegal act you've committed while wearing it." Todd's laugh was hollow. "Or what? You'll kill me? That'll look great for the decorated colonel." "I don't need to kill you," Daniel said. "In fact, I don't need to do anything except release what we already have. You think your department will protect you when the FBI sees this? When the governor's office gets involved? When national media picks up the story of the corrupt cop terrorizing a military family? The gymnasium fell silent as Todd processed his options, each one worse than the last. "You have 24 hours, Daniel continued. "Turn yourself in, confess everything, or we release all of it. Every video, every recording, every piece of evidence. Your choice." Todd's eyes darted between Daniel, Maya, and the exits, all blocked by Daniel's men. "This isn't over," he snarled. "You're right," Daniel agreed. "It's just beginning." As Todd and his officers backed toward the exit, Maya stepped forward. "One more thing, Officer Wallace," she called out. "My father taught me that bullies only understand one thing: strength. Thank you for proving him right." Back at the Carter house, the team reviewed the evening's success. Todd had left the gym defeated, his authority in tatters, his officers already distancing themselves from him. "He won't turn himself in," Wilson predicted, accepting a cup of coffee from Lisa. "Guys like that never do." "I know," Daniel replied. "That's why we're ready for Phase 2. Maya looked up from her laptop, where she'd been reviewing the footage from the gym. "What's Phase 2? Daniel exchanged glances with his team. "We've been gathering evidence on Todd for days, but we've only scratched the surface. Tonight, while he's panicking, trying to cover his tracks, my team is accessing police servers, collecting financial records, and interviewing witnesses who were too scared to talk before." "Is that legal?" Maya asked hesitantly. "Let's call it a gray area," Ramirez answered with a wink. "Military intelligence gathering techniques applied to civilian corruption. By morning," Daniel continued, "we'll have enough evidence to bury Todd and anyone who's been working with him. But that's not enough. We need to make sure this never happens again. Not to you, not to anyone in this town." "How?" Lisa asked. "By changing the system, not just removing one bad cop," Daniel explained. "Todd's just a symptom. The disease is deeper." Later that night, as the house grew quiet, Maya found her father in his study, reviewing footage from the neighborhood cameras. "Dad," she said softly, "I never thought it would go this far. I just wanted the harassment to stop." Daniel looked up, his expression softening. "Maya, what Todd did wasn't just harassment. It was abuse of power, one of the most dangerous things in a free society. Men like that don't stop. They escalate. The next family he targeted might not have had our resources or training." He pulled up a file on his computer, photos of other victims, other instances of Todd's corruption. "This was never just about us." Maya nodded, understanding dawning. "So what happens now?" "Now," Daniel said with grim satisfaction, "we wait for Todd to make his next move. And he will. Men like that always do." As if on cue, Daniel's phone buzzed with an alert from the security system. On the screen, a live feed showed a police cruiser driving slowly past their house. Todd, alone this time, his face visible in the glow of the dashboard lights. "Right on schedule," Daniel murmured. "Desperate men make desperate choices." Maya watched the cruiser pass by again, feeling not fear, but a strange calm. For weeks she'd been the prey, hunted and harassed. Now the tables had turned. "Get some rest," Daniel told her, his eyes still on the security feed. "Tomorrow, we end this." As Maya headed to bed, she paused in the hallway, looking at a family photo that had survived the raid. Her father in uniform, standing tall and proud. She'd always known he was a soldier, a leader, someone who fought in distant lands for reasons explained in vague terms of national security. Now she understood what that really meant. Her father wasn't just a soldier, he was a strategist, a protector, a force of nature when threatened. And Todd Wallace had made the grave mistake of threatening what Daniel Carter held most dear. In the stillness of the night, with rain pattering against the windows and her father's team keeping silent watch, Maya finally slept without fear for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow would bring the reckoning that Todd Wallace never saw coming. The day he would learn what it truly meant to face an enemy he couldn't intimidate, couldn't bribe, and couldn't escape. The war had begun, and the Carters were winning. Dawn broke over Jefferson with a hazy orange glow. Maya awoke to the sound of quiet conversation downstairs, her father's team already at work. She found them gathered around the dining table, laptops open, coffee mugs scattered between stacks of documents. "Morning," Daniel greeted her, sliding a plate of toast her way. "Sleep well?" Maya nodded, taking in the scene. Maps of Jefferson were pinned to the wall, photos of Todd and other officers connected with red string, creating a web of corruption that stretched further than she'd imagined. "What happened last night?" she asked, picking up a piece of toast. "After I went to bed." Ramirez, the team's tech specialist, looked up from his laptop. "Your friend Todd made 3 passes by the house, then spent 2 hours at an all-night diner with Jake. Based on their body language, they were arguing. The rats are turning on each other," Thomas added with a thin smile. Daniel pulled up a chair beside Maya. "Todd called his captain at 2 a.m., then the district attorney. Neither answered." He nodded toward Lawson, who was monitoring a police scanner. "This morning he called in sick, first time in 5 years according to his records. He's panicking," Maya realized. "Good," Wilson said. "Panicked men make mistakes." The team spent the morning finalizing what they called the pressure campaign, a coordinated release of evidence to specific targets. Daniel explained the strategy to Maya as they worked. "First, we released the water incident video to 3 local news outlets," he said, pointing to a timeline they'd created. "Then 2 hours later, financial records to the state attorney general. By noon, witness testimonies to the FBI field office in the city." "Why not all at once?" Maya asked. "Psychology," Wilson answered. "Let him feel the noose tightening slowly, each revelation worse than the last." By mid-morning, the first video was making rounds on local news and social media. Todd pouring water over Maya, his smirking face clearly visible. The Carter's house phone began ringing with calls from reporters seeking comment. Daniel's team monitored Todd's movements through a network of surveillance. The corrupt officer had left his house in civilian clothes, driving erratically through town, stopping briefly at the police station before being turned away at the door by his own captain. "He's heading to the old shipping warehouse on River Road," Lawson reported, tracking Todd's GPS signal. "That's where Jake is waiting." Daniel nodded to Ramirez, who pressed a few keys on his laptop. "Audio's live," Ramirez confirmed. Through a small speaker on the table, they heard Todd's voice, agitated and desperate. "They've got everything, man. Everything. That military prick and his team have been 10 steps ahead the whole time." Jake's response was cold. "That's your problem, not mine. I told you to leave the girl alone." "You were right there with me," Todd shouted. "Don't pretend you're innocent." "Difference is," Jake replied calmly, "I can claim I was following orders from a superior officer. You can't." A pause. Then Todd's laugh, hollow and bitter. "So that's how it's gonna be, after everything we've done together? It's called survival, Todd. The captain's furious. The mayor's office is getting calls. That video of you pouring water on the Carter girl is everywhere." Daniel and Maya exchanged glances. The plan was working even better than they'd anticipated. Todd's support system was crumbling in real time. By early afternoon, Todd was making increasingly desperate moves. He showed up at Ethan's school, pulling his nephew from class. Through the school's security cameras, which Ramirez had easily accessed, they watched the heated exchange in the parking lot. "You started this," Todd shouted, grabbing Ethan's arm. "If you hadn't been so obsessed with humiliating that girl—" "Me?" Ethan shot back, jerking away. "You're the one who went crazy. Pouring water on her, breaking into their house? That wasn't my idea." "Don't talk to me like that," Todd snapped, raising his hand threateningly. Ethan stepped back, shock registering on his face. "Are you going to hit me now? Like you hit those guys on the east side who couldn't pay up?" Todd's expression shifted from anger to alarm. "How do you know about that?" "Everyone knows," Ethan replied, his voice breaking. "It's all over social media. Mom's been crying all morning. Dad won't even look at me." The confrontation ended with Todd storming back to his car, leaving Ethan standing alone in the parking lot, his world collapsing around him just as Todd's was. Daniel turned to Maya after watching the footage. "Todd's running out of allies. Fast." "What? About Ethan?" Maya asked, surprising herself with the question. Daniel studied his daughter. "What about him?" "He looks broken. He helped start this, Thomas reminded her. I know, Maya said quietly. But he's also just a kid who thought his uncle was some kind of hero. Before Daniel could respond, Ramirez called out from his station. Colonel, Todd's on the move again, heading toward the mayor's office. They watched through traffic cameras as Todd's car weaved through downtown Jefferson, parking haphazardly in the city hall lot. He stormed into the building, bypassing security with his badge. This should be interesting, Wilson murmured, tapping into the mayor's office security feed. Mayor William Grant was a thin, nervous man who had been in office for nearly a decade, largely by avoiding controversy and maintaining the status quo. When Todd burst into his office unannounced, the mayor's face registered shock, then dismay. "Officer Wallace," he stammered, rising from his desk. "This is highly inappropriate. You need to help me," Todd demanded, slamming his hands on the mayor's desk. "Call off the hounds. Tell the media there's an investigation pending, that they can't run these stories." Mayor Grant's eyes darted to his closed door, then back to Todd. "I can't do that. The videos, the accusations, they're everywhere. The state police called an hour ago. The FBI is opening an investigation." "You owe me," Todd shouted, his composed facade completely shattered. "All those tickets we wrote to meet your precious budget goals? The special handling of your son's DUI last year?" The mayor's face drained of color. "Officer Wallace, I think you should leave, now." "Or what?" Todd sneered, leaning closer. "You'll call the police?" The standoff ended when the mayor's secretary called security. Todd left, but not before issuing a final threat. "If I go down, I'm taking everyone with me." Back at the Carter house, Daniel's team exchanged satisfied glances. "He just implicated the mayor on a recorded feed," Lawson noted. Christmas came early. Daniel checked his watch. "It's been 18 hours since our ultimatum. He has 6 hours left to turn himself in before we release everything." "He won't do it," Ramirez predicted, cycling through more surveillance feeds. "Guys like Todd don't surrender. They lash out." Daniel nodded grimly. "That's what I'm counting on." As evening approached, the team tracked Todd to his home, where he spent an hour frantically shredding documents before packing a bag. His movements were erratic, his planning sloppy, a far cry from the confident, swaggering officer who had terrorized Maya weeks earlier. "He's making a run for it," Wilson observed. "No," Daniel replied, studying the feed. "He's getting ready for a last stand." Maya, who had been helping her mother prepare dinner for the team, joined them as Todd made a series of calls from his burner phone, calls to officers who had participated in his corrupt schemes over the years. "He's calling in all his chips," Daniel explained, "gathering whatever allies he has left for one final play." "Against us?" Maya asked, concern crossing her face. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's what he thinks, but he's walking right into our final trap." As darkness fell, Todd drove to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. One by one, cars arrived. 5 in total, each carrying an officer loyal to Todd or too compromised to refuse his call. Through thermal imaging equipment that Ramirez had set up earlier, they watched the meeting unfold. Todd paced as he addressed his diminished crew, gesturing wildly, occasionally slamming his fist against a crate for emphasis. "He's planning something tonight," Daniel concluded, turning to his team. "Wilson, Thomas, I want you in position at the north and south approaches to our street. Ramirez, maintain surveillance. Lawson, alert our contacts at state police and FBI that Todd might be making a move." Lisa, who had been quietly observing from the kitchen doorway, stepped forward. "Should we leave the house? Stay somewhere else?" "Tonight?" Daniel shook his head. "That's exactly what he wants. To drive us out, make us look afraid. We stay put. But Maya," he turned to his daughter, "you'll be in the panic room with your mother if anything happens." "But I want to help," Maya protested. "You already have," Daniel assured her. "More than you know. Now it's our turn to finish this." As the team mobilized, Maya pulled her father aside. "I know you're doing all this for me, but you won't hurt them, right? Even Todd." Daniel's expression softened. "This isn't about hurting anyone, Maya. It's about justice. Real justice, not the twisted version Todd's been enforcing. She nodded, satisfied with his answer, though she couldn't shake the feeling that the night would end in ways none of them could predict. By 11 o'clock, the Carter house was ready. Security systems activated. Panic room prepared. Daniel's team in position. Through their surveillance network, they watched Todd's group leave the warehouse, splitting into two vehicles that headed directly toward their neighborhood. "They're coming," Ramirez confirmed. "ETA 10 minutes. Daniel gathered everyone in the living room for final instructions. "Lisa, Maya, panic room at the first sign of trouble. No arguments." He handed Lisa a secure phone. "This connects directly to state police. If anything happens to us, press the red button." As Lisa and Maya headed reluctantly to the basement, Daniel turned to his team. "Non-lethal responses only. We're soldiers, not vigilantes." The men nodded, checking equipment one last time. They had disabled most of the streetlights, plunging the neighborhood into an unusual darkness that would disorient Todd and his men, while giving Daniel's team, equipped with night vision, a significant advantage. At precisely 11:17 p.m., Todd's two vehicles entered the neighborhood, driving with headlights off. They parked 3 houses away, and 6 figures emerged, moving with poor imitations of tactical formation toward the Carter home. "Amateurs," Wilson muttered over the comms from his position. "They're not even checking their flanks." Daniel watched from an upstairs window as Todd led his men across the lawn, their silhouettes visible against the faint moonlight. When they reached the porch, Todd paused, producing what looked like a small battering ram. "Front door in 3, Daniel warned over comms. "Positions ready." The crash of the battering ram against the front door echoed through the silent house. On the second strike, the reinforced door gave way, and Todd's men poured into the darkened living room. "Police!" Todd shouted, though he wore no uniform, carried no warrant. The house remained silent, appearing empty. Todd signaled his men to spread out, searching for the family he was determined to terrorize one final time. "Carter!" Todd called out, his voice echoing through the seemingly empty house. "Come out and face me like a man." From the shadows upstairs, Daniel spoke into the house intercom system. "I'm right here, Todd. I've been waiting for you." Todd spun around, gun raised toward the ceiling. "Show yourself."
"You've made a mistake coming here," Daniel's voice continued, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "A final, fatal error." As Todd's men nervously scanned the darkness, the lights suddenly went out completely, plunging the house into total
blackness. Panicked shouts erupted as the officers bumped into furniture and each other. In the chaos, Daniel's team moved silently through the house, using their night vision equipment to navigate flawlessly. One by one, Todd's officers went silent, expertly subdued without a shot fired. Todd, sensing he was rapidly losing control of the situation, backed toward the front door. "Where are you?" he shouted, his voice betraying his fear. "What did you do to my men?" When the lights flickered back on, Todd found himself alone in the living room, his gun still drawn, but his men nowhere to be seen. Before him stood Daniel, unarmed, hands clasped behind his back in a relaxed military pose. "Your men are fine," Daniel said calmly, "which is more than I can say for your future." Todd leveled his gun at Daniel's chest, his hand trembling slightly. "You think this ends here? I'm still a cop. I've still got friends in high places." "No. Todd," came Maya's voice from the staircase. "You don't have anything left." Both men turned to see Maya standing halfway down the stairs, phone in hand, recording everything. "This was never a fight," she continued, echoing her father's earlier words. "It was an execution. You just didn't know it yet." Todd's face contorted, with rage. He swung his gun toward Maya, finger tensing on the trigger, only to have the weapon knocked from his hand by Daniel with a move so swift it seemed almost invisible. In the next instant, Todd was on his knees, Daniel's knee pressing firmly into his back as he secured the officer's hands with zip ties. "You're done," Daniel said quietly. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, not Todd's corrupt allies, but state police and FBI agents who had been standing by, waiting for precisely this moment. Todd had walked into a trap of his own making, His illegal raid on a military family's home captured from multiple angles, his own threats recorded and live-streamed. As officers entered the house, Daniel handed Todd over without comment. The corrupt cop was led away in handcuffs, still shouting threats and accusations that no one bothered to acknowledge. Daniel's team emerged from various parts of the house, each escorting one of Todd's subdued officers to the waiting authorities. Lisa joined Maya on the stairs, wrapping a protective arm around her daughter as they watched justice finally unfold. A state police captain approached Daniel, extending his hand. "Colonel Carter, we've been monitoring this situation since your first report. Impressive work. Just protecting my family," Daniel replied simply. "Well," the captain said, looking around at the evidence being collected, the officers being processed, "you did a lot more than that. You may have cleaned up an entire department." As the law enforcement officers began clearing out, Daniel turned to Maya. "It's over," he said softly. "He can't hurt you anymore." Maya nodded, tears of relief finally coming after weeks of fear and tension. "I know, Dad. I know." The days following Todd Wallace's arrest unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of justice. Morning news shows led with aerial footage of the disgraced officer being escorted from the Carter home in handcuffs. By afternoon, headlines declared a corruption earthquake shaking the foundations of Jefferson's police department. Maya watched it all unfold from the quiet safety of her living room, her father's team gradually dispersing as their mission concluded. Ramirez was the last to leave, ensuring all surveillance equipment was properly removed and all digital footprints erased. "You did good, kid," he told Maya before departing. "Most civilians would have broken under half the pressure you handled." "I'm a Carter," she replied with a small smile. "We don't break easily." On the third day after the raid, Daniel received a call from the state police commissioner requesting a meeting. He returned home that evening with news that surprised even his tactical mind. "Todd's singing like a canary," he told Maya and Lisa over dinner. "Implicating everyone. Fellow officers, the captain, even the mayor. It's like a dam broke." "Why would he do that?" Lisa asked. "I'd have expected him to fight every charge." "Self-preservation," Daniel explained. "His lawyer showed him all our evidence. There's no way out for him except to cooperate and hope for a reduced sentence." Maya pushed her food around her plate. "What happens to the other officers? The ones who helped him?" "Case by case," Daniel replied. "The ones who were just following orders might get reassigned or suspended. The ones who were actively corrupt," he shrugged, "they'll face charges." The conversation was interrupted by a news alert on Daniel's phone. The local station was reporting that Police Captain Richard Barnes, Todd's superior, had called an emergency press conference. They turned on the television just in time to see Captain Barnes approach a podium outside the police station, his face grim but determined. "In light of recent events," Barnes began, "I want to assure the citizens of Jefferson that the actions of Officer Todd Wallace do not represent the values or standards of our department. While I take full responsibility for any failures of oversight under my command, I want to make it clear that Officer Wallace acted alone in his harassment of the Carter family." Daniel snorted. "There it is, the betrayal we predicted." On screen, a reporter called out, "Captain Barnes, records show you signed off on multiple falsified reports filed by Officer Wallace. How do you explain that?" Barnes's composure slipped. Momentarily. I'm not at liberty to discuss ongoing investigations, but I assure you, any officer found to have violated their oath will be held accountable." As the press conference continued, the captain's denials grew increasingly desperate. By the end, even the most casual viewer could see he was throwing Todd under the bus to save himself. "Classic damage control," Daniel observed, turning off the TV. "He knows the evidence trail leads right to his office." The next morning, Maya returned to school for the first time since the raid. Lisa had offered to let her stay home longer, but Maya refused. "I'm not hiding anymore," she declared. The reception at Jefferson High was surreal. Students who had previously ignored her now watched with fascinated respect as she walked the halls. Teachers who had dismissed her complaints now greeted her with forced smiles and awkward apologies. At her locker, Newly repainted after the vandalism, Zoe was waiting. "Oh my God," Zoe whispered, hugging Maya tightly. "The whole school's talking. About what happened. About your dad taking down Officer Wallace. Is it true he had a whole team of Delta Force guys with him?" Maya smiled, not confirming or denying. "It's good to see you too, Zoe." As they walked to class together, Maya noticed a familiar figure standing alone at the end of the hall. Ethan Wallace, head down, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The usual crowd of admirers was noticeably absent. His parents pulled him out. "Yesterday," Zoe explained, following Maya's gaze. "But the principal made them bring him back, said he needed to face the consequences of his actions." "How bad has it been for him?" Maya asked. "Bad," Zoe replied. "Nobody's talking to him. Someone spray-painted corrupt on his locker. Even the teachers are cold to him." Maya watched as Ethan shuffled into a classroom, shoulders hunched against the weight of his uncle's legacy. Despite everything, she felt a twinge of sympathy. Ethan had been cruel, entitled, and arrogant, but he hadn't ordered the raids or poured water over her head. He was in many ways just another teenager who had believed the wrong stories about power and privilege. Later that day, Maya found herself alone in the library during her free period. She was surprised when Ethan approached her table, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. "Can I talk to you?" he asked quietly, glancing around to ensure no one was watching. Maya hesitated, then nodded toward the empty chair across from her. Ethan sat down, hands fidgeting nervously on the table. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Maya replied, returning to her book. "Yes, I do," Ethan insisted, his voice cracking. "What my uncle did, what I helped start, it was wrong. All of it. I was such an idiot, thinking I was untouchable because of him." Maya closed her book, studying Ethan's face. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something raw and unfamiliar. Genuine remorse. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because I need to fix what I broke," he said, echoing the words she would later realize came from deep within himself. "But I don't know how." Maya was silent for a long moment, weighing her response. "You could start by telling the truth," she finally said. "About the debate, about what really happened in the hallway, about all of it." Ethan nodded slowly. I already told the principal everything this morning. He's talking about suspension, maybe expulsion. Actions have consequences, Ethan. I know that now." He stood up, avoiding her eyes. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry, Maya." As he turned to leave, Maya called after him softly. "Ethan." He paused, looking back. "Fix what you broke. Not just with me, with everyone." That evening, Daniel received another call from the state police commissioner. He took it in his study, emerging 20 minutes later with a grim satisfaction in his eyes. "The dominoes are falling," he told Lisa and Maya. "Captain Barnes has been suspended pending investigation. 3 more officers have come forward, offering testimony against Todd and the captain in exchange for immunity." "What about the mayor?" Lisa asked. "His office issued a statement expressing shock at the corruption and promising full cooperation," Daniel replied with a hint of sarcasm. "He's running scared. Todd's lawyer says he has recordings of conversations with the mayor about ticket quotas and revenue targets." Maya shook her head in disbelief. "How deep does this go?" "That's the thing about corruption," Daniel said, sitting beside her on the couch. "Once it takes root, it spreads through the entire system. Todd was just the most visible symptom." Over the next few days, the collapse of Todd's corrupt network accelerated. The local newspaper ran a 7-part investigative series titled Badge of Dishonor, detailing years of abuses by Todd and his allies. Former victims came forward with stories that echoed Maya's experience: harassment, false charges, intimidation. The district attorney announced a special task force to review every case Todd had been involved with over the past decade. The city council held emergency sessions to discuss police reform and oversight. What had begun as one officer's vendetta against a teenage girl had exposed systemic failures throughout Jefferson's power structure. A week after Todd's arrest, Daniel received an unexpected visitor, Detective Sarah Reynolds from the state police. She brought news that Todd's preliminary hearing had been scheduled, along with a request that Maya consider testifying. "Your statement would be powerful," Detective Reynolds explained. "But I understand if it's too difficult." Maya looked to her father, who nodded encouragingly. "It's your choice, Maya. No one would blame you for wanting to put this behind you." "I'll do it," Maya said firmly. "People need to hear what happened, all of it." Later that evening, after Detective Reynolds had left, Daniel found Maya sitting on the back porch, staring thoughtfully at the sunset. "You sure about testifying?" he asked, joining her. "Yes," she replied without hesitation. "Dad, when this started, I just wanted Todd to leave me alone. But now I see it was always bigger than me. If I don't speak up, who will?" Daniel smiled with quiet pride. "You know, your mother and I raised you to stand up for what's right. But watching you do it, seeing your strength through all this, it's humbling." "I learned from the best," Maya said, leaning against his shoulder. As darkness fell over Jefferson, miles away in the county detention center, Todd Wallace sat alone in his cell. His lawyer had just left after delivering the latest blow. Jake Miller, his former partner and friend, had agreed to turn state's witness. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Jake would testify about years of corrupt practices, excessive force, and illegal activities. Todd's empire hadn't just crumbled, it had collapsed completely, burying him beneath the wreckage of his own making. As he stared at the cinderblock walls of his cell, Officer Todd Wallace finally understood what Colonel Daniel Carter had meant. At their first meeting, "You don't know what war looks like, Wallace, but you will." The war had come, not with guns and bombs, but with evidence and justice. And Todd had lost before he even knew he was fighting. The next morning, Maya walked into Jefferson High with her head held high. For the first time in weeks, there were no whispers, no sideways glances, just respect. As she made her way to her locker, students parted slightly, not out of fear but a new kind of deference. She spotted Ethan at his locker, alone but standing straighter than the day before. When he saw her, he nodded once, a small gesture of acknowledgement, perhaps even gratitude. Maya nodded back, neither forgiveness nor friendship, but recognition of a lesson learned the hard way. In the principal's office, Principal Winters was clearing out his desk, another casualty of the corruption investigation. His failure to protect Maya, his deference to Todd's authority, had cost him his position. As Maya passed by the open door, he looked up, his face etched with regret. "I'm sorry, Maya," he said simply. "I should have listened to you." Maya paused, in the doorway. "Yes," she agreed. "You should have." She continued down the hall, head high, steps confident. The girl who had once been targeted for standing up to a bully was now the symbol of justice in Jefferson, a living reminder that even the most powerful corruption could be brought down by the courage of a single person who refused to be silenced. And behind her, unseen but ever present, stood the shadow of her father, the Delta Force commander who had taught her that true strength wasn't about intimidation or power, but about standing firm when the world tried to push you down. The empire had crumbled, and from its ruins, something better would rise. 2 weeks after Todd Wallace's arrest, the full moon cast long shadows across the Carters' front lawn. Inside, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with Detective Reynolds, finalizing details for the upcoming preliminary hearing where Maya would testify. "We've received credible information that some of Todd's remaining supporters might try to intimidate witnesses," Reynolds explained, sliding a folder across the table. "Nothing specific about Maya, but I wanted you to be aware." Daniel flipped through the intelligence reports with practiced eyes. Not surprising. A cornered animal is most dangerous when it has nothing left to lose. "We'll have security in place," Reynolds assured him. "But given your unique capabilities, I thought you should know what we're dealing with." After Reynolds left, Daniel found Maya in the living room, reviewing her written statement for the hearing. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing his expression. "Just some precautions we need to take," he replied, sitting beside her. How are you feeling about tomorrow? Maya set down her notes. Nervous, but ready. She paused, studying her father's face. There's something you're not telling me. Daniel smiled despite himself. Maya had always been perceptive. Detective Reynolds believes some of Todd's friends might cause trouble at the hearing. Are they going to try to stop me from testifying? They might try. They won't succeed. Maya nodded, a determined set to her jaw that reminded Daniel of himself. I've been thinking about what I want to say, she told him. Not just about what Todd did, but why it matters. How many others might have been hurt if we hadn't stopped him? That's important, Daniel agreed. This was never just about us. That night, as the Carter family prepared for bed, Daniel's security system alerted him to movement at the edge of their property. On the monitors, he watched 3 figures in dark clothing approaching through the neighbor's yard. Amateurs, he muttered, texting Wilson and Lawson, who had remained in town as a precaution. Within minutes, they confirmed they were in position, watching the intruders. Lisa, Maya, Daniel called quietly up the stairs. Basement, now, without question, they headed for the reinforced room, practiced and calm. Daniel positioned himself in the darkened living room, night vision goggles ready, as the intruders reached the back porch. The first one tried the door, locked of course, then pulled out what appeared to be a lock-picking tool. Daniel recognized him as Officer Peter Davis, one of Todd's closest allies in the department, and one of the few who hadn't yet been suspended. 3 on the back porch, Daniel murmured into his comm. Wilson, Lawson, wait for my signal. The back door opened with a faint click, and the 3 officers crept inside, unaware they were already caught in Daniel's trap. Their whispered conversation carried clearly in the silent house. Check upstairs, Davis instructed. Find the girl. Remember, we just need the evidence she's planning to present tomorrow. No unnecessary force. And if they wake up? Another officer asked nervously. They won't, Davis replied with cold confidence, as the officers split up. Daniel allowed them to search the empty bedrooms upstairs before making his move. When Davis headed toward the basement door, Daniel activated the house's emergency lighting system, bathing the interior in a disorienting blue glow that rendered their flashlights useless. The intruders froze, suddenly realizing something was wrong. In their moment of confusion, Wilson and Lawson entered through the front and back doors simultaneously, silent and efficient. What the? Davis began, reaching for his weapon, only to find Daniel standing directly behind him, having moved through the house without making a sound. Looking for something, Officer Davis? Daniel asked calmly. The raid turned into an ambush, within seconds. Wilson and Lawson subdued the other 2 officers with practiced ease, using zip ties to secure their hands. Davis, finding himself suddenly alone and outmatched, raised his hands slowly. This isn't what it looks like, he stammered. Breaking and entering? Attempted evidence tampering? Conspiracy to obstruct justice? Daniel listed calmly. Looks pretty clear to me. Outside, red and blue lights flashed as Detective Reynolds' team arrived, right on schedule. Daniel had alerted her to the potential threat hours earlier, and they had coordinated the perfect countertrap. Your timing is excellent, Detective, Daniel remarked as Reynolds entered, surveying the subdued officers with professional satisfaction. Couldn't have done it without your intel, Colonel, she replied, signaling her officers to take the intruders into custody. To Davis, she added, Officer Peter Davis, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and about 5 other charges I'll enjoy listing at the station. As Davis was led away in handcuffs, he shot a venomous glare at Daniel. This isn't over. Actually, Daniel countered, it just ended. Your career, your freedom, your last chance to make the right choice, all of it, over. Maya and Lisa emerged from the basement after Reynolds confirmed the scene was secure. Maya took in the aftermath of the failed raid, her expression resolute. They really thought they could stop me from testifying, she said, more statement than question. They were desperate, Daniel explained, and desperate men rarely think clearly. Reynolds approached Maya with a sympathetic smile. You okay? This can't have been easy. I'm fine, Maya assured her. Just more determined than ever to speak up tomorrow. That's what they don't understand about intimidation tactics, Daniel observed. They often create exactly the opposite effect of what was intended. The failed raid made headlines the next morning. Another blow to the already crumbling police department. 3 more officers arrested, corruption reaching deeper than anyone had imagined. At the courthouse, security was heightened as Maya prepared to give her testimony. The hallways were lined with state police officers, and plainclothes agents mingled with spectators in the courtroom. Daniel and Lisa sat in the front row, a united front of parental support. When Maya was called to the stand, she walked forward with steady steps, her head high. She took the oath and settled into the witness chair, her eyes briefly meeting Todd's. Across the courtroom, the once imposing officer sat slumped beside his attorney, his uniform replaced by prison orange, his arrogance eroded by reality. "Miss Carter," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court in your own words what happened on September 15th when you first encountered Officer Wallace." Maya took a deep breath and began her testimony. Her voice, quiet at first, grew stronger as she recounted the harassment, the threats, the water incident, the illegal raid on their home. She spoke clearly and without embellishment, the facts damning enough without exaggeration. When she described the night of the raid, Todd's threatening behavior toward her mother, his illegal entry, his clear intent to terrorize, several jury members visibly recoiled. "Were you afraid?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes," Maya answered honestly. "Not just for myself, but for what it meant. If a police officer could do this to me, to my family, what might they do to someone without our resources? Someone without a father trained to protect them? Someone who might not be believed?" From his seat, Daniel watched with undisguised pride as his daughter transformed her personal trauma into a powerful call for accountability. This wasn't just about Todd Wallace anymore. It was about the system that had enabled him. When it was the defense's turn for cross-examination, Todd's lawyer approached cautiously. "Miss Carter, isn't it possible that you misinterpreted Officer Wallace's actions as threatening when he was simply performing his duties?" Maya met his gaze steadily. "Is it an officer's duty to pour water over a teenager's head? To follow her home at night with his headlights off? To break into her house without a valid warrant? If those are duties, then something is fundamentally broken in how we define police work." The defense attorney had no effective counter. After a few more half-hearted questions, he returned to his seat, where Todd sat glaring at Maya with impotent rage. As Maya stepped down from the witness stand, she passed close to Todd's table. He leaned forward slightly, whispering just loud, enough for her to hear. "This isn't over, girl." Maya paused, looked him directly in the eyes, and replied with quiet confidence, "Yes, it is." The preliminary hearing concluded with the judge ordering Todd to stand trial on multiple felony counts. As the courtroom emptied, reporters clustered around Maya and her family, shouting questions about justice and vindication. Daniel shielded Maya from the crush, guiding her toward a side exit where Detective Reynolds waited to escort them out. As they walked, Maya leaned close to her father. "Did you see his face?" she asked. "When the judge announced the decision?" Daniel nodded. The moment he realized there was no escape. "Is it wrong that part of me felt satisfied?" "No," Daniel replied thoughtfully. "That's human. Just don't let it define you." Outside the courthouse, a small crowd had gathered. Not reporters, but citizens of Jefferson. As Maya emerged, they began to applaud, softly at first, then building to a sustained show of support. Among them, Maya spotted a familiar face, Mr. Wilson, her elderly neighbor who had recorded the first confrontation with Todd. "You did good, child," he called out as they passed. "You did real good." The crowd parted to let them through, many reaching out to touch Maya's shoulder or simply nod in solidarity. This wasn't celebration of Todd's downfall, but recognition of something more important. Courage in the face of intimidation. Truth standing firm against power. As they reached their car, Daniel noticed a solitary figure standing at the edge of the parking lot, Ethan Wallace watching silently. When their eyes met, Ethan nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement or perhaps respect, before turning away. He testified too, you know, Reynolds told them as she opened the car door. Against his uncle. Must have been hard for the kid. Maya watched Ethan's retreating figure. Sometimes doing the right thing is hard. That's what makes it matter. That night, the shadows that had lingered over the Carter house for weeks seemed to lift. The threat wasn't completely gone. Todd's trial was still months away, and the full extent of corruption in Jefferson remained to be exposed. But a corner had been turned. As Maya prepared for bed, she paused at her window, looking out at the quiet street. No police cruisers lurked in the shadows. No malevolent presence watched from the darkness. For the first time in weeks, the night felt simply like night. Peaceful, ordinary, safe. In the basement, Daniel locked away the last of his tactical equipment. The mission was transitioning now, from immediate protection to long-term justice. His team had dispersed, returning to their civilian lives with the satisfaction of a job well done. The war was over. The reckoning had come. And from the ashes of corruption, something new was beginning to emerge. Spring came to Jefferson with a sense of renewal that extended beyond the season. 4 months had passed since Todd Wallace's preliminary hearing, and the town had changed in ways both visible and profound. On a bright Saturday morning, Maya walked through the farmer's market with her mother, enjoying the simple pleasure of normality. People still recognized her. The girl who stood up to corruption was not easily forgotten, but the whispers had changed from scandal to respect. "Maya!" called a voice through the crowd. Zoe appeared, weaving between vegetable stands, to reach her friend. "Did you see the news this morning?" "What news?" "Todd took a plea deal," Zoe explained breathlessly. 15 years, no possibility of parole for at least 10. It's all over social media. Lisa and Maya exchanged surprised glances. "I thought he was determined to fight it out in court," Lisa said. The evidence was too overwhelming, came a familiar voice behind them. Detective Reynolds approached, looking more relaxed than they'd ever seen her. "Good morning, Carter family." "Detective," Daniel greeted her, appearing with fresh bread from the bakery stand. "Keeping tabs on us still?" Reynolds smiled. "Force of habit. But I wanted you to hear the news from an official source. Wallace accepted the plea this morning. No trial necessary." "What about the others?" Maya asked. "Davis? Jake? The captain?" "Various deals, depending on their level of involvement and cooperation," Reynolds explained. "The department's being rebuilt from the ground up. New leadership, new training, new oversight." "And the mayor?" Daniel pressed. Reynolds's expression turned grim. "Resigned last week. The investigation into his involvement is ongoing. The corruption went deeper than any of us realized." As they talked, Maya noticed people watching them, not with suspicion, but with something like gratitude. An elderly woman approached hesitantly, touching Maya's arm. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said softly. "My grandson was arrested by that Wallace man 2 years ago. Planted evidence, trumped up charges. Now they're reviewing his case because of what you did." Throughout the day, similar encounters occurred, people sharing stories of their own experiences with Todd's corruption, expressing gratitude for Maya and her family's stand. What had begun as one girl's fight against harassment had catalyzed a community-wide reckoning with injustice. On Monday, Maya returned to school to find an announcement on the bulletin board. The student council was organizing a forum on civil rights and police accountability. Her name was listed as an invited speaker. Principal Morton, who had replaced Winters after his resignation, stopped Maya in the hallway. "I hope you'll consider participating," she said warmly. "Your perspective would be invaluable." "I'll think about it," Maya promised, though public speaking had never been her goal. She had only wanted justice, not recognition. As she walked to her first class, Maya passed Ethan in the hallway. Their relationship had evolved into something not quite friendship but no longer enmity, a mutual acknowledgement of a difficult shared experience. "Hey," he said, falling into step beside her. Did you hear about my uncle? The plea deal? Yeah. Ethan nodded, his expression complicated. My parents are talking about moving. Fresh start somewhere new. Is that what you want? Maya asked. I don't know, he admitted. Part of me thinks I should stay. Try to make things right here. Build something better than what he built. Maya considered this. That takes courage. I'm working on it, Ethan replied with a self-deprecating smile. Anyway, I thought you should know. I'm testifying in the civil rights investigation. About everything I saw, everything I heard over the years. That's good, Ethan. It's the least I can do. He paused at his classroom door. See you around, Maya. The changes in Jefferson extended beyond the school and police department. City council meetings, once sparsely attended, now overflowed with engaged citizens demanding transparency and accountability. A civilian oversight board was established to review police conduct. Community forums addressed issues that had festered beneath the surface for years. At the Carter home, life had settled into a new normal. Daniel had declined offers to consult on police reform in neighboring cities, choosing instead to focus on his family and their recovery from the months of stress. One evening, as Maya worked on college application essays at the kitchen table, Daniel received a phone call that brought a rare look of surprise to his face. That was General Hayes, he told Lisa and Maya after hanging up. They're offering me a position at the Pentagon, strategic security planning, civilian protection protocols, senior level. Are you going to take it? Lisa asked. Daniel glanced at Maya. What do you think? Maya considered the question carefully. I think you'd be good at it. Making systems safer, protecting people who can't protect themselves. That's what you do best. It would mean moving to D.C. next summer, Daniel pointed out, after your graduation. I've been looking at Georgetown anyway, Maya replied with a small smile. Their pre-law program is excellent. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Pre-law? When did this happen? Maya shrugged, a little embarrassed. I've been thinking about it for a while. Since everything with Todd, really. I want to understand how the law works, how it's supposed to work. Maybe become a civil rights attorney or work in police reform. Daniel nodded, pride evident in his expression. Using your experience to help others. That sounds right. A week later, Maya received an unexpected invitation. The newly appointed police chief wanted to meet with her. With some trepidation, she agreed, accompanied by her father. Chief Andrea Powell was everything Todd Wallace had not been. Thoughtful, ethical, committed to community service. She welcomed Maya and Daniel to her office, which had been transformed from Todd's cluttered domain to an organized space with community awards and family photos displayed prominently. Thank you for coming, Powell began. I wanted to meet the young woman who started this transformation. She gestured around her. None of this would have happened without your courage, Maya. I just defended myself, Maya replied modestly. You did much more than that, Powell corrected her. You exposed a cancer that had been growing in this department for years. And now we have a chance to build something better. She outlined her plans for reform. Enhanced training, community engagement, transparent disciplinary procedures, body cameras for all officers. We're calling it the Carter Protocol, she added, if that's all right with you. Maya blinked in surprise. You named it after me? After what you represent, Powell clarified. Standing up to abuse of power, even when it seems hopeless. Especially then. As they left the station, Maya noticed the community bulletin board in the lobby. Among the notices and wanted posters was a framed photograph of a young black woman in police uniform. The caption read, Officer Janelle Williams, 1979-2003, remembered for her integrity. Who was she? Maya asked the desk sergeant. One of ours, he replied respectfully. Tried to report corruption years ago, before there were proper channels. Died in what was ruled an accident during a traffic stop. Chief Powell had her case reopened last month. Outside in the bright afternoon sun, Maya was quiet, processing everything she had seen and heard. It really was bigger than us, wasn't it? She finally said to her father. Todd, the corruption, all of it. Most important battles are, Daniel replied. That's why they're worth fighting. When they arrived home, they found Lisa in the front yard, planting spring flowers with an energy that spoke of renewal. Maya joined her, digging her hands into the rich soil as they discussed college plans and the upcoming summer. Later that evening, Maya stood at her bedroom window watching the peaceful street as dusk settled over Jefferson. So much had changed in 7 months. The town, the school, herself. The fear that had once shadowed her daily life had transformed into something unexpected. Purpose. On her desk lay college applications and the draft of an essay about justice and accountability. Beside them, a letter from a law firm specializing in civil rights cases, offering her a summer internship before she began college. Maya thought about what Chief Powell had said, standing up to abuse of power, even when it seems hopeless. It hadn't felt like courage at the time, just necessity, survival, doing what had to be done. But perhaps that was what courage really was. Her phone chimed with a text from Zoe. Meeting tomorrow about the Student Rights Committee? Your voice matters. Maya smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. Her voice did matter. She had learned that lesson through fire and fear, through standing firm when the world tried to push her down. Downstairs, she could hear her parents talking quietly. In the kitchen, her father's deep laugh mingling with her mother's lighter one. The sound of safety, of family, of home. Maya Carter, daughter of a Delta Force commander, survivor of corrupt power, catalyst for change, turned from the window and sat at her desk, pulling her laptop close. There was work to do, a future to plan, a legacy to build. Outside, Jefferson continued its slow transformation. Inside, Maya began to write, her words flowing with newfound confidence. I learned about justice not from textbooks, but from its absence. I learned about power not from those who wielded it corruptly, but from those who stood against such corruption. And I learned that a single voice, raised in truth, can echo far beyond what anyone might imagine. The next morning, Maya walked into Jefferson High with her head held high, as students parted to make way, showing a respect born not of fear, but of admiration. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced darkness and emerged stronger, wiser, more determined. Over breakfast, Daniel had told her something that resonated deeply. They thought they could break you, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. Maya Carter, daughter, student, catalyst for change, smiled to herself as she headed to class, ready to continue the work that had only just begun. What would you do if the system meant to protect you became your greatest threat? Maya's story reminds us that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting despite it. If this story of justice and accountability moved you, please like, subscribe, and share. For more stories that challenge our understanding of power and resilience, hit that notification bell.